far, far more important than some of the more material factors. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. I think it's hugely important. So we now have the Fostering Adoption Service annual reports, which Jill is going to take you through, and rather than say anything more about that, I'll leave it to her. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm pleased to be presenting the annual reports. As the leader said, these relate to 2019-20. So yeah, they are, just bear that in mind as we're kind of going through and discussing the reports. I'll just take you through the kind of key highlights for both services, because I'm aware there's a lot of detail in these reports, and I'm sure there might be questions that I can answer. So in terms of the adoption service, the main area for development during last year was joining our regional adoption service, Adoption Central England. Councillors will remember that they agreed for us to join the regional adoption service, which is in line with national requirements. Adoption Central England is a partnership between Warwickshire, Solihull, Coventry, Worcestershire and ourselves, and is led by Warwickshire. So that we joined ACE on the 1st of July of last year. The planning worked really well and we joined as planned, and there was a really smooth transition, I'm really pleased to say. So in terms of the ensuring that there was no disruption to plans for children, that staff were well supported in that transition, and we ensured that all the relevant information and data was available to ACE so that there was no disruption to service. So that worked really well. As part of our planning for joining ACE, we chose to develop an early permanency hub, which is based within our child protection and court team, really to bridge a gap which would have been left without that service. And that's worked really effectively in terms of reducing the potential for drift and delay for children with a care plan of adoption. And we've also seen an increase in the number of children being placed in foster to adopt placements. That's fairly marginal for last year, but that's something that we continue to focus on, and we are seeing an increase in those placements, which provides greater stability for generally babies, enabling them to move directly to adoptive families and not to have a further move. So in terms of our priorities for 2021, which are obviously well through now, it's to continue that focus on pre-birth planning and increasing the number of children that are placed in foster to adopt placements, to improve the timeliness of children being placed for adoption, and also to ensure that we eliminate the backlog that was there for life story books and later life letters, and meet a target of completing those within 2 weeks of the celebration hearing. So I'm pleased to say that that backlog has now been eliminated. For the fostering service, key achievements were increasing the number of children that were placed with in-house foster carers. That was against a backdrop of a small reduction in the number of overall carers, and obviously that continues to be a priority for us. We did increase the number of children leaving care for permanency through special guardianship order, and again that's an area of work that is continuing this year. Improving the training offer to foster carers, and that's been really important due to the COVID pandemic, because actually what we had developed was a whole suite of online training, which has obviously been invaluable as we came into the pandemic, and very much adapting to meet the needs and support foster carers during COVID-19. So in terms of our priorities for this year, very much we are focused on how we can increase the number of foster carers and foster placements available for children in-house, and that's across really all of our ranges of foster carers. So general, HIPS placements that support children to step down from residential care, sleepover scheme, which supports children with a disability, and supported lodgings providers for our older young people. We wanted to continue to increase the number of children who are long-term matched with their foster carers, and continue to increase the number of children who leave care via a special guardianship order. So that's kind of a very quick summary. As I say, there is quite a lot of detail in the report, so I'm happy to take questions that councillors may have.
Right, I think probably it's easiest if we deal with one report at a time. So perhaps any questions or comments about the fostering annual report to start with? Jill, it all seems very positive as far as I can see. So well done and a very good year. Is there an impact yet obvious with COVID? Presumably it's introducing new people into the household and that sort of thing. Is there some resistance to that? Is it causing an issue?
Yeah, we have seen some difficulties. I would say that overall foster carers managed remarkably well when we first went into lockdown. Clearly they had children at home. For many of them they had a lot of children at home, because many of our foster carers have their own children as well as looked after children. And that was a big ask for any of us, wasn't it? So they managed remarkably well. We put a hold on respite care in almost all cases when we were in lockdown. So again, those carers that normally had quite regular breaks didn't have that, and yet they managed remarkably well. They really did kind of get on with it, and we're incredibly grateful to all of them for doing that. I think what we have seen though is that we know that amongst our foster carer population, some are older, some do that have their own health issues, and so there were some foster carers who needed to self-isolate, and for that reason weren't offering new placements. I think we're still seeing some impact from that, and whilst some carers have kind of come back available, that's not the case for all of them. We've also seen that across the independent sector that they've had the same difficulties, and so we've seen a reduction in availability of foster carers both in-house and within the independent sector, and so we are seeing increased pressure in finding placements, and that's impacting on residential and the demand for residential care. So we have seen through the summer an increase in the number of children being placed in residential care where we think that their needs can be met within a fostering family. So that it is a pressure, and I think that's likely to continue through into the winter and spring of next year. But we are working hard to support carers to look at what they can do. And we are all adapting, aren't we, to this life through COVID, and that's the same for our foster carers too.
Yes, I think we all wish we knew when this crisis was going to finish. It's nice to have a light at the end of the tunnel, but we have to cope, I suppose, with how it is. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Jill. Thanks for this report. It's very interesting. Just a couple of questions. The key point 9 is the priorities for improvement during this and next year. You've put increase the number of general HIPS and sleepover scheme foster carers, supported lodging providers, and the ones for long-term matched with their foster carers, and also for children leaving the special guardianship orders. Tell me how many of those we have now and how many you want to increase to. What's the goal?
Do you mean specifically for special guardianship or across each of those priorities?
Each of those priorities, if you've got the numbers, but if you haven't, I'd be happy to receive them in a follow-up. Just an interest to see how much we need to improve the service.
Okay, yeah, it's probably easier to provide you that information following this meeting. I think within the fostering report, where it talks about the sufficiency strategy. Sorry, bear with me, I'm flicking between screens. So let me point you to the right area. Sorry, bear with me.
Sorry, Jill, I also appreciate it's not an easy question to answer, is it? It's quite.
If I may, Leader, in terms of at the end of September, we had 27 applications filed, whether the court or with legal services, to achieve the children's exit from the care system. 12 special guardianship applications in 11 care order discharges before the court. So I think, yeah, it'd be good to provide council with some more context, but I think we've seen, certainly over the last 6 months, a continued approach, in our reduction strategy, which is having an effect in terms of children being supported into long-term family arrangements that don't require them to be classed as looked after, and having some of the involvement of services and intrusion that they no longer leave in their lives. So that's been a positive thing. I think I'd echo, obviously Jill's points about it's really good that in the past year the number of beds has increased, but our number of foster carers has decreased, and there is a pressure. We do rely on independent foster carers as well, and they do, can provide really good care for children, but we do want to increase the number of our council carers, and so we've done some work over the summer to look at what more we need to do in terms of looking at different ways of recruitment, and there'll also be something coming forward about how we compare with other areas in terms of the support for foster carers as well, which was mentioned in this report, but it's good that colleagues have been able to do that work over the summer to, inform us going forward as well. But we shouldn't have children in residential care where they could be, supported in family-based settings, but we have a lack of choice, and that's something that we do need to change, because we do want that principle which you've set of children being supported in family-based settings.
Thank you, Chris. That's really quite encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Tyler.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Thank you for the report, Jill. Referring to Appendix B, it outlines there's been quite a high number of staff turnover over the last 12 months. Why has that happened? And also having the fact that foster carers have had several changeovers with social workers as well, has that an impact of you employing new foster carers in this situation, and what has that had an impact on children, having several social workers as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was quite unusual last year to see quite a high level of turnover in the fostering service. It generally has been quite a stable staff group. The staff who left actually left for positive reasons. They were promoted within our service to other roles, so I think that was encouraging. We also have 2 members of staff off on maternity leave at the moment, and within what's a relatively small team, that has quite an impact. So we did have some agency workers in. We had, I think, 3 or 4 over the year, and none of them stayed very long for a variety of reasons. So unfortunately, that did mean that some foster carers had a worker allocated who then left quite quickly, and another worker allocated. And because it's those workers that are leaving, it's the same carers who have that turnover. So that was really unfortunate, and I think we did see that being coming back to us in feedback from foster carers' annual reviews, and those that had that experience did talk about them feeling less supported than they had previously. I am pleased to say we're in a much better position now in terms of stability of staff. and the team is all but one member of staff fully staffed now, and we've got greater stability. And we've also taken on board the feedback, particularly for new carers, and we now allocate a family support worker to newly approved carers, so that even if we're not able to provide that continuity of a social worker, there is continuity from a family support worker who can help with their induction and really make sure they are getting the support that they need. In terms of the impact for children have their own social worker. So these are the social workers for foster carers. So although they often know the children and do spend some time with them, their main focus is on supporting foster carers, and children have their own. So I'm not saying it doesn't have any impact on them, but I think the impact is less.
Oh, interesting. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Chowns.
Thanks for the report, Jill. A couple of questions. So on page 41, it's really good to see about the social media advertising, and that being a kind of new channel of kind of, you know, trying to reach new people. I'm interested to see half of your inquiries came through that, and I'm wondering, is that meaning that you're reaching, you know, that you're recruiting a different type of person from previously? Is it changing the type of people that you're recruiting, and do you have the same sort of conversion rate of inquiries to actual people becoming foster carers through social media advertising? And sort of relatedly, I was just looking through for kind of reference to diversity, because I did see that in the equality impact part of the report, it notes that in both fostering and adoption, we need to broaden the diversity of the carers that we're recruiting. I couldn't see a great deal about that in the report proper, and I was wondering if you could speak about that, the diversity issue in particular, and what measures you're taking to achieve that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we launched our own Facebook site in January of this year, and I think that is really going from strength to strength. We've got a really active member of the team who really works hard at promoting that and creating some streams of work that people can engage with, so that creates some kind of energy around it really and attracts attention. So we have seen a real growth in the number of inquiries coming through that route. I think one of the kind of dilemmas for us is that the translation of inquiries into applications and home visits is very low. And trying to understand that. One of the things that we know from national research is that most foster carers, once approved, talk about the fact that they thought about it over an average of 2 years. So we do know that kind of creating awareness and generating awareness of fostering itself and of us as a service, and why foster with us as a service is worth an investment in. It's very difficult then to identify what it is, the kind of one thing that makes someone pick up the phone and say, now I'll apply to be a foster carer, and now I'll apply to you. So we've done some recent evaluation over the summer to try and understand that a bit more and to get some direct feedback from applicants and potential applicants. So we're just looking at the findings of that report and looking at what we can adopt into our own kind of strategies. So I think we need to continue to work on that, and obviously through COVID, having a strong online presence has been really important, because we are really limited in what we can do out and about in the community, albeit we have done some of that activity over the summer. In terms of diversity, I think we know that most of our looked after children are white British. We do have a significant number of children and young people from a Gypsy Roma traveller background. We have a small number of asylum seekers, most of whom are now care leavers, although we have recently accepted a new transfer from Kent. And so yeah, we have a small number of children who do come from a Black minority ethnic background or are of mixed race. It is an area that we struggle with to recruit carers from those backgrounds. I think we have improved in terms of working with kinship carers and identifying kinship carers. So, for example, we've had some children from a Polish background where they've been placed within their own family. And I think as a service, we're better at doing that for all children. And consequently, we are also better at doing it for children who are, don't originate from the UK. But I think it is an area that we need to continue to work on. I think all of you as counsellors will know that we've recently written to you about the Making the Counsellors Pledge, and I've already had quite a lot of responses to that, so thank you for that. One of the areas that we've asked for your support in is around fostering recruitment. So the plan is to write to those of you who have indicated you would support in that area very shortly, to give you the information about our online presence and how you can support that, but also send out to you some recruitment materials that you can have yourselves to use, as you see fit, really, and where might be relevant in terms of your role and your work. So I would be really grateful for your support in that way. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you very much, Jill, for this report, for both reports, which were very easy to read and understand. I've only just got 2 points. One point on the fostering report. I actually went onto Herefordshire website on Foster a Child webpage, and it's quite bland and a little bit boring. And because I see that there's been an underspend in the marketing budget, I was wondering, is there a possibility to look at creating either a promotional film or that engages with our foster carers or children that have been fostered, and actually to revamp that page? So that's my question number one. And on the adoption report, who is responsible, or is it only the social workers that write the life story books and the later life letters? And do we engage any other outside agencies to help with that? Thanks, Jill.
Okay, if I take your second question first. So in terms of the life story books and later life letters, we have a team of family support workers who provide family time or supervised contact for children with families, and they also produce the life story books and later life letters. That team are no parents, because they're working with them right from the point of time that child becomes looked after, and so they're in a position to collect the information that's really important to build those relationships with those parents, so that we can produce really good pieces of work for those children. So they are a team of family support workers. They're managed by a social worker, and the child's own social worker has the opportunity to input into that work. And on some occasions they write, it's the social worker that writes the later life letter. But what we found is one of the reasons that we built such a backlog previously is that much as social workers wanted to do that work, actually against all the other priorities that they had, it was the one thing that kept getting pushed down the to-do list. And so we've moved to the family support team completing that work to avoid that. In terms of the website and the kind of marketing approach, we still do have a vacancy in the marketing officer post, and we're currently exploring what options there might be so that we can be more effective in that area. And there's a number of options that we're considering. In terms of the council website, it's always quite difficult to keep that very fresh, because of the limitations on what we can do on that website, really, in terms of working with corporate comms team and how that website is managed. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to have our own Facebook page, is it does enable us to be much more dynamic, interactive, and refreshing the material that's available. And we do use some short videos. So some of our foster carers have agreed to do short videos explaining why they enjoy fostering, what attracted them. Some of our young people, some of our social workers talk about why they enjoy working in the fostering team and what people can expect. So we are trying to create some materials like that, as I say, that makes it more interesting. But I would take your point about the website.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Leader. This question really for Chris. I know in the past, and it may not be entirely relevant to this report, but I know in the past we talked about, or Chris and the team talked about the possibility of identifying and supporting sort of super foster parents, I might say, in a sense that foster parents that perhaps took people at shorter notice, maybe took more than one, or maybe took several at a time, to sort of provide us with a kind of a bit of a buffer between needing to go into residential care if we couldn't find foster parents in a sort of sufficiently adequate and quick way. I just wondered if there's been any information on that, please.
Yeah, we had our approach to HIPS, the intensive placement support, which is supporting foster carers, and we did have, as the report notes, a small number of carers who specifically were part of that programme, Councillor Harrington. We've tried to recruit to those roles, for want of a better word, as some have left, or some children have remained with those carers, and we've not been able to. So during this year, we've taken the decision to offer the additional support and payments to all foster carers and see if any wanted to take that up and, develop their caring experience and benefit these children. And we've had, I think, some two come forward to do that. Jill's nodding, so yeah, that's the up-to-date figure. And we're checking again with that, because we did that just before the summer holidays, really. But we're also looking at what else we can do, and that may involve working with a different partner potentially to try and bring in a different range of expertise in terms of foster care, as well as looking at what more we can do to grow our own more broadly. So it has been tricky, Councillor. We did have this approach, this HIPS approach, which worked well during the time it was full, but we've tried but been unsuccessful to recruit further carers specifically to that role. So in essence, we've widened the scheme out and made it more of an offer to our existing carers. But I think we do need to do more as a council as well, and we've got some work on that and some proposals that will come forward shortly.
Okay, Leader, if I could just come back on that very briefly. I just remember probably 20, 30 years ago now, there used to be a foster carer who lived out near Mansell Lacey, I think it was, or Mansell Gummidge, and she literally would have a house full of people who were kind of needed placement quickly. She was a wonderful woman, extremely caring, and very good foster parents, and it felt like a very safe and natural environment. And it just, I know that so many of the foster children relate, that lady cared for, often for very short periods of time. We're immensely grateful for her kindness and for having that sort of, I would say, facility is exactly the wrong word to use, having that home environment there that was there for them at short notice, and it just as a way of not going into a slightly more sterile kind of environment in a residential setting. So yeah, I think that'd be something I'd really hope we could try. I know it's difficult, but we can try and find a wonderful old grandmother somewhere, if you know what I mean.
Yes, you paint a very nice picture, Councillor Harrington, about trying to think of the A.G. Bates stories. Can anybody remind me of that? Darling Buds of May, that kind of picture. It's wonderful. Peter Chinman.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for this report. Can I just, I note your comments about working with ACE, and I note that you have 125 adopters as your target, but that you'd only managed to get 70. And then you go on to say that 17% of adopters completed stage 2, 41% only out of them within 5 months. That shows considerable difficulties in actually converting those who wish to adopt into truly becoming adopters, not least because both those percentages end up in being parts of a person. But that aside, it does mean that you have really a question. Really, is the target wrong? Is the training inadequate? I mean, this is a very emotional subject, so I'm very conscious that people who are hoping to adopt, are they being rejected? Are they not being helped enough? Why is that happening, and why is that figure as low as it is?
So the figure is around the timescales, I believe, of completing those assessments within the timescales that we've set for ourselves. They are quite ambitious timescales, and I think we are continuing to work to improve on those. But that's not to say that that's the number of adopters that ultimately get approved. It is about the number that have been approved within the timescale that we've set ourselves. I think I'm right in saying that. I was trying to scan through the report.
It's page 36.
Thank you.
Or on our thing. So at the end of the day, we would hope that the 70, the chances are that the 70 will, bar a couple, actually get through that process. It's merely your timelines causing you problems, which then begs the question of whether your timelines are wrong or the process is more difficult. You've said they're ambitious, and I respect that, but at the same time, are they overly ambitious? Therefore, and we don't want to be putting off people. Is I think what my concern is.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's good reason for assessments to take longer than that, it's about us understanding the reasons for that, and it's certainly not to say that we would put adopters or prospective adopters under pressure if we felt they were potentially good adopters but needed more time. So it's more about a standard for us as a service about progressing those assessments in a very timely way. I think ACE is still a relatively new part of its journey, and it was bringing together some quite different local authorities, all at different stages in terms of their own performance prior to being part of ACE. So I think this was we joined in July, partway through that year. ACE itself, that was its first full year of operating. So I think we need to continue to monitor that and see how that progresses. I think it's right to have an ambitious target. Liz Elgar is on the management board, in fact I think chair now of the management board, and so they have regular oversight and scrutiny of the performance of the whole service, and there's also links at kind of my level as well. So I think we need to keep that under review, but I think it's too early to say we should just move the target.
Thank you.
Thank you. Les Elgar, you wanted to comment.
Yes, if I could, thank you. Sometimes assessments don't run as smoothly as was hoped due to everyday family occurrences. So some people, couples, partnerships where are going through the assessment process, there might be an illness within the family to a extended family member, or a bereavement, unemployment, something that sort of rocks that unit a little bit. And sometimes in those circumstances, it's put on hold until people have the opportunity to be in the right frame of mind to continue with the assessment again.
Liz, are you finding it helpful being chair of that organisation? Are you seeing trends which are common in Herefordshire with other counties?
It's very interesting being chair of the board. I've only chaired one board meeting so far. It's quite interesting to hear the challenges that other areas have, and places quite different to Herefordshire. So, for instance, Coventry are experiencing, some real pressures at the moment, different to those which we're experiencing. But what I do find is that there is a real desire across the 5 members of the adoption agency to really push to make sure that children who have a plan for adoption can be matched and can move forward on their adoption plan as swiftly as possible. And we have seen some improvements in our performance in timescales for that, which you see in the monthly scorecard that you receive.
Thank you, Liz. Councillor Selden, Alan.
Thank you, Leader. To continue on the same in a way, the performance of the Adoption Central England figures don't actually look that great. Section 5 of the report. And one of the complaints that's reached me through my contacts with the children's centres in Bromyard is that the process is clunky, it takes too long, and it's not always conclusive. The people aren't sure whether they're going to, or doctors, I should say, or not. There's something they need to do to make the process more consistent, I think is the word I would use, to make it more consistent for people who adopters. It's easier for them to get into the system. Because I think once they're in the system, it seems to be working quite well.
Okay, thank you. I think I know that ACE would be looking for feedback from applicants, both kind of through the assessment process, but also hopefully once approved as adopters. And I think it's important that as a service, we're always looking to learn from people's experience. Assessing someone to be approved as an adopter is a very intrusive and detailed assessment, and rightly so, because we are looking for people to care for some of our most vulnerable children, for their lifetime and without any state intervention. So it's incredibly important we get those assessments right. Once people are approved as an adopter, there's then a process of looking for the right child to match with them. For some adopters that happens very quickly, and for others less so, for all sorts of reasons. So I think it is a very difficult process for adopters and prospective adopters, and to understand what is happening. And I think we can always learn from their experience about how we can help them to understand the process, what is going on, and also look at what we can do to improve it, and as you say, make it less clunky. So I think that's important, and I would encourage those people that you're talking to feedback their comments.
Thank you. We've sort of seamlessly moved into the adoption report. I don't know whether anybody has any other questions related to that. Felicity, yes.
My comment was really just following on, and it was specifically about adoption. It was just really a reminder that there is clearly a huge interest in this, and Liz Elgar is going to be doing a briefing. It was originally, I think, for a few of us. The interest is clearly very widespread, and I think, if I'm right, Liz, you're going to be offering it to all councillors, which hopefully will give people a further opportunity to, follow this process and find out a bit more about it.
Yes, yes. There's some difficulty at the moment trying to find a slot where everybody's free to attend, but I'll be presenting along with colleagues from legal services, and it will be an outline of the adoption process from sort of start to finish, actually. So I would be hopeful that as many people as can would be able to attend, so we can dispel some myths about adoption and also explain the process so that everybody's familiar with it.
Great, thank you very much. I think we'll move on now to any comments and questions from group leaders, and I'll start off with Councillor Hardwick. I don't know whether you have any comments or questions.
No, I don't think I have, Leader. I think it's all been set out very clearly, and I think the questions that have been asked cover most points that I would have mentioned. So happy to move on, Chairman, Leader.
Yeah, thank you. I think Councillor James has not been able to join us. So I'll move on to Councillor Lester.
Yes, thank you. It's a question for Jill about ACE. I can remember when I had responsibility, we were talking about ACE, and it presented challenges. And I remember that we were been consistently good as an adoption agency, and so we understood why government was pushing for this regional approach, but we were concerned, I think, that we didn't want it to affect our good operations, and we could at the time see that it was going to be beneficial for various reasons about pooling resource and widening the net, as it were. And from all appearances, it looks as though it's been a good transition, and that's credit to officers and all those involved. But I was just really a question for Liz as well as Jill, I suppose, if Liz is chairing the board, are there any downsides to being involved in ACE? Are there any risks you see because we are in this regional approach?
Sorry, I don't know whether Liz was going to come in. I'll go first. I don't know that we are seeing downsides at the moment. I think there's always that potential to a certain extent. By joining a partnership, we have to work with those partners, and I suppose there's risk within that we've lost, to a certain extent, some control. But I think, as we've described, we're very much involved, and Liz as the chair of that group, and it is very much a partnership. I think we very much are seeing the advantages, because we have seen that growth in the pool of adopters. So we're seeing that children are waiting less time to be matched with adopters. We've certainly seen some financial gains to that, because we were in the position of having to purchase quite a lot of interagency adopters, and that's no longer the case. And we've also seen that because of its size, ACE has been able to develop some specialist services. So, for example, the birth parent service has that we didn't have in the way that it has now, and some real specialisms in terms of understanding attachment and training and support to adopters, through their lifetime. So I think we are seeing far more advantages, and I don't know whether Liz would want to add anything, but I'm not seeing a downside to it so far. I think it's been really positive.
I would agree with that. I think we're seeing an increase in our foster to adopt placements, which is extremely beneficial for very young children where there is a plan of adoption. I think the courts are also confident when we are asking for an adoption and placement order. They're aware that ACE are working hard and being able to identify prospective adopters, and the timescales for children waiting to be placed for adoption are coming down. The other benefit is that it does give some opportunity to look at other areas of permanence as well. So ACE are keen to see whether on a regional basis we can look at offering support to special guardians. And with their level of expertise and their ability to be able to deliver online training, seminars and support to people from a bit of a distance, I think there's a lot of benefits that we can continue to achieve through being in that regional relationship with 4 other local authorities.
Thank you for that, those answers, and that's really encouraging. I just wanted to make one more question, and then we're done, Conservatives, for now on this issue. But we would take any opportunity to praise all of the people who adopt children and all of the foster carers who do such an amazing job, and long may that great work continue. So we are very, very grateful. One of the things that I was very keen to progress, because there were anomalies that needed addressing, was the policy on special guardianship orders, which we did, and I think we were right to do it, and that's really positive. It's really encouraging to see that there are special guardianship orders being promoted and used, and I think that's a really good way forward. My question is, on behalf of the group, is how much more scope do you think there is to progressing that much further? Because the solution to a child in care is largely dependent on their own needs, but I do think that the special guardianship order is an excellent route, and how much more can we progress that to solve some of the issues that we have?
If I could come in there, I think that's something that we can continue to progress. In actual fact, there's just been a parliamentary task force completed a piece of work on kinship carers, and I'm searching to try and find the report that's come out of that. But what it's trying to establish is that kinship care should be the first thought and not an afterthought, and that's exactly what we're trying to do now, with putting some additional family support into our child protection and court part of the service, so that if we are in proceedings and we do identify extended family members who could be that permanent long-term carer for that child, where we may have ruled people out before because they didn't get through an initial viability assessment, with some family support, they may actually be able to, by the end of proceedings, be a viable alternative carer for that child. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. And I think with our new approach to pre-proceedings, as soon as we enter into pre-proceedings, we are identifying possible kinship carers, and the moment that we've issued proceedings and have an interim care order, we now convene an initial permanency planning meeting, which really sets us off on the track of looking to see whether there are viable alternative carers within the family or friends network. So I think there is a lot more that we can do, but we've already started to implement that.
Thank you, Councillor Lester. So now Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Yes, like the Conservatives, we very much welcome the increase in use of kinship foster carers and special guardianship orders, and also more use of the family support workers, who of course are both cheaper and much easier to recruit and train locally. I note that many families will, unfortunately, at this time be facing considerable financial uncertainty, and so many people in Herefordshire have got care experience. So I do hope we will be able to reach out and contact some of those people who might like to join our team, because there is a bewildering multiplicity of roles that they could play, with right from just very short-term sort of respite offers to longer ones. And it does concern me that although we're getting more people, where our stickiness is obviously not good enough, that we've gone down from sort of 19% conversion to 10%. So looking at your remark that people had thought about this for 2 years, I wonder how we can somehow develop a program that, instead of just people come up, they think it's not what they think and they go down, that we can somehow sort of engage them for a period so that they're more likely, perhaps in 18 months time, having been to some interesting presentations and met some interesting people, and whether we can somehow increase our stickiness. And that would be my hope, that we could do because, as I said, there are such a lot of very good carers in Herefordshire. And the other mention, just a small point, was on page 16, it suggests that the fostering allowances will come to Cabinet this autumn. And that obviously is very important to try and make sure that we can use as many as possible of our own employees rather than independents who cost more. So I wondered if you could just update us on that, please. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, in relation to your first point, I think we are always looking for ways to keep in touch with people who have an interest. So clearly we need their consent to do that. But those that kind of express an interest and either they decide or we decide that now isn't the right time for them, doesn't mean that it won't be in the future. And actually we know that many of our approved carers, that has been their journey, that they came back to us at a later point. So we do try and keep in contact with them, drop a call, invite them along to events, as you say. And I think we're always looking for kind of better ways of doing that. In terms of the review of the fostering allowances, that was slightly delayed, really because of the work that came around through COVID. However, the proposals have been developed now and were considered at our SMT meeting this week. So we need to look at how we take those forward in discussions with Councillor Norman. But I'm hopeful that we will be able to bring forward proposals to Cabinet. I guess it will be early in the new year now.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor Selden.
Just to continue the theme I had before, Leader, just to say to declunkify the process of getting people into the adopting scheme, make it as smooth and easy as possible, and then cut down the timescales. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gandy is Chair of the Scrutiny Committee. I don't know whether you have any comments.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I mean, a lot of the questions that have been asked by members of the Cabinet and supports were questions that were asked, obviously, by our Scrutiny Committee. I think that the disappointment for us, and again hearing it today, is that we do struggle to recruit foster carers, and I do take on board the portfolio holders' comments that a foster carer is more about the person and it's not so much about the money and things like that. But nevertheless, our foster carers have to be able to live and support the children they are looking after, and at this moment in time, and obviously since March, for some this has been very, very difficult, more difficult than probably we ever imagined. Now, when we considered this report at Scrutiny, we were at that time concerned that the report with regards to the hopefully improved allowance for foster carers had been delayed, and we would have seen this, and I recognise the issues around COVID, but we would have seen this as being something that was extremely important, because, and it's even more important now because we've got a situation where people will maybe losing their jobs, the other member of the family, and I am somewhat concerned to find that we still seem to be not quite there yet, and we are now talking about not actually this coming to Cabinet until the new year, and that is, for foster carers who are in difficult situations now, that is probably too long, and attracting new foster carers is probably too long as well. So that's the comment I would make, that I did feel when we discussed it at Scrutiny that it was going to come to Cabinet sooner than that. So I am disappointed that that's not going to be the case. The other issue is we obviously appear to be now merging adoption and fostering into the same discussion, is regarding the life story books. This has always been an issue for Herefordshire Council. We've always been criticised by Ofsted and peer reviews regarding this. And I am sure, as a result of the COVID situation, it has given an opportunity, and the fact that you have changed the method of working, it has given you an opportunity to get on top of this. I think the important thing is that we need, once we are out of this situation, and let's hope that it won't be too long, that we don't go back to where we were before, because we were in a really bad state prior to COVID, and we were heavily criticised for it. And I do think that from the point of view of the young person going for adoption, they need that information. They need to know about their life. They don't want to be waiting 2 years perhaps to get that information available to them. And that was, in some instances, the situation before we went into lockdown. So I'm hopeful that it will continue on this path, but scrutiny will continue to keep an eye on it to make sure that it does. Thank you.
Jill, I don't know whether you want to respond to that, and then perhaps Councillor Norman, you just sum up. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I take on board your comments, Councillor Gandhi, about the delay, and we will look at how we can expedite those proposals coming forward. In terms of the life story books and later life letters, I understand your concern, and we will not return to a place that we were before. We now have some dedicated resource within the team. We have systems in place to monitor that we are maintaining that position and not getting behind at all, and so that we can respond very quickly if that appeared to be happening. But I'm confident that it won't, and that we've got the resource in place to avoid that.
Thank you. Okay, just before the vote, Felicity, if you've got any comments you want to make?
Just thank you very much, everyone. Some very helpful comments and questions, which I hope will help us to, to focus on the things where we do need to do more work. And obviously, fostering itself, retaining or actually attracting and retaining foster carers is a challenge, a big challenge. But there are plans to try and address this in the future. And also, I do hope we can bring forward the focus on the allowances, and perhaps bring that forward as quickly as possible. That's clearly a really important one, particularly in all respects, particularly in terms of trying to increase those numbers and to make life a little easier for the people who are already in place. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jill, for a good report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jill. So I'll just put this to the vote. We'll have an electronic vote in a moment. The recommendations are in the report. Recommendation A is the performance of the adoption service as outlined in Appendix A to this report is reviewed. Any risk to achievement of objectives noted and relevant mitigation actions approved. And B, the performance of the fostering service as outlined in Appendix B, which I've just lost the wording. I pressed the wrong button.
Leader.
Appendix B, this report reviewed.
Leader, forgive the interruption. I just need to inform you and attending members and officers that we had a technical issue at the start of the meeting. This meant that the live stream missed about the first 5 minutes of the meeting. So I'm afraid we will need to do the roll call again if that is okay, and we'll also need to just agree the minutes. Apologies for that interruption to the normal passage of your business. What will happen is we will look to put, after the roll call, we'll look to put the poll up again to agree the minutes, and then Leader will go back to your position of agreeing the recommendations or reviewing the recommendations for this item.
Okay, fine. So we go back to the beginning to the roll call. Yeah. Do I just need the roll call for the cabinet members, John?
Yes, Leader.
Yeah, okay. So I'll go back to the prepared. Okay. So I'll go to each councillor in turn to confirm they can hear and be heard. This is a legal requirement for virtual meetings. Where practical, please also have your video switched on so that you can be seen by those in attendance. So running through everyone, Councillor Norman.
Yes, I can see and hear you. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Chowns.
Yes, I can see and hear you. Thanks, Leader.
Councillor Crockett.
Yes, Leader, hear and see you.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, I can see and hear you, Leader. I won't be able to vote on the motion, the adoption one, because I haven't heard the argument.
Okay. Councillor Harrington.
Yes, I can see and hear you. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes, I can see and hear you, and you look lovely.
And Councillor Tyler.
Yes, I can see and hear you, Leader. Thank you.
Excellent. So that's the roll call. So then we go to the minutes of the last meeting. Now, I won't go into all the words, I don't think, because we know how to do this now. So if the voting card can come up. Oh yes, people are leaving the room. So we need to go back one from that, John, don't we?
So the poll is live, Leader.
Okay, thank you. So if you vote for, against or abstain, and then press the submit button.
Leader, all votes are in and have voted unanimously in favour to approve those minutes.
Thank you very much. We'll then move to the recommendations for the fostering and adoption annual reports. Recommendation A is that the performance of the adoption service as outlined in Appendix A to the report be reviewed, any risk to achievement of objectives noted and relevant mitigating actions approved. And B, the performance of the fostering service as outlined in Appendix B to the report be reviewed, any risk to achievement of objectives noted and relevant mitigating actions approved. So again, while we just have the voting members present, if we can have the voting card come up, please. And then if everyone would care to vote for, against or abstain. Mine has just disappeared, actually.
Sorry,
Yes.
Leader, just bear with me a second.
We're all still here at the moment.
Are you all going to have to be moved out? I don't know. What was...
Yes, we're awaiting ejection.
Leader, it may be quicker to go to the roll call on this one, if that's okay.
Yes, certainly. Okay. So if you can say whether you're in favour, against or abstain. So first of all, Councillor Chowns.
For.
Councillor Crockett.
For.
I won't ask you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Harrington.
I'm for, thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
For.
Councillor Norman.
For.
Councillor Tyler.
For.
And I'm also in favour. So that motion is carried. So we then move on to the next item. Everybody happy with that? Bring everybody back in.
Not sure what we're going to do.
Everyone is in, Leader.
Okay. Okay, I can't see on the screen Councillor Lester, for instance. Maybe that's, I've got two screens. Oh, okay, right, fine. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item, Councillor Davis has joined us. Thank you very much. It says the endorsement of the Herefordshire Cultural Strategy 2019 to 2029. So this strategy has been prepared by the Herefordshire Cultural Partnership, who did an enormous amount of work to produce this document. Councillor Davis, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm proud to be able to present the report endorsing the Herefordshire Cultural Strategy for 2019 to 2029. Herefordshire Cultural Partnership is an organisation bringing together representatives from amazing cultural organisations based in Herefordshire. You'll notice that the strategy says 2019, so why on earth am I bringing it now? I'm bringing it now to show our full commitment to cultural services in Herefordshire. When I first joined as Cabinet Member for Culture, I was faced with a very difficult day where I was presented with a report that included £250,000 worth of savings for our cultural sector, our cultural services within the council. Those of you that work within culture, that have dealt within the council, or that you've had experience of our cultural organisations throughout the county, will know the significant cuts that they have taken over the last 10 years. This is our way of saying we will support the cultural sector in our council. We will ensure that they are that running thread that goes through every decision that we make when we look at it via the lenses of tourism, health and well-being. So it might seem a bit odd that it's coming a year later, but I think that says where we are as council a year later, really firm in our stance, really aware of what we want to move forward with. And I want to express a huge thank you to all of the staff within cultural services for the last few years that they've shown. Even though we've had all of the significant cuts, they've still carried on and are still providing an incredible service for the Herefordshire citizens, even more so during COVID. And a recent report has shown the huge benefit to health and well-being that both libraries and museums enriched individuals that were unable to meet family members, to speak to friends during lockdown. The endorsement of this should show also our support for our future plans as a council with regards to both the libraries, the museums and the Herefordshire Archives and Records Centre, and understanding that this is us as an organisation accepting the strategy, but making sure that we work with all those various organisations to ensure that we have the best rural exemplar for cultural services in the UK. Thank you. I'll hand over to John.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Yes, this is something that's been in the offing, I suppose, for some time. We've had representation as a council on the cultural partnership for a number of years under the previous administration, and that's carried through to this administration. This strategy came out last year, was the culmination of some months' work. And as Councillor Davis said, the cultural partnership encompasses not just ourselves as a council represented on it, but a wide range of other organisations. So Courtyard, the Cathedral is also involved, many of the practitioners, the National Trust. So there are some real opportunities here, which I've outlined are outlined in the paper, about how the council's backing for this report could really help the cultural sector, not just the council and the cultural services within the council, but in terms of working with Arts Council England, potentially unlocking some future funding. The rural media company's recently been awarded some grant funding to look at developing a cultural compact for Herefordshire. And one of the reasons it was successful in that was the fact that the council was backing that bid and is supportive of culture generally. So the request is for council to endorse the report. It's not directly involving the council in committing to anything financial, but it's a statement to show that culture, arts and heritage in the widest forms are supported within the county. And I think it will help those creative industries based in the county. I think, having spoken to Nick Millington at Rural Media, we've got something like 500 small businesses involved in creative industries based in the county, many of them just one or two people. But knowing that they have the support of the council will help them in future funding bids and in developing their links across the sector.
John, thank you very much. Yes, it's a tough time for a lot of people at the moment, isn't it? And we know the issues that the arts have at the moment, particularly the Courtyard Theatre, not being able to get any income coming in from selling tickets. And it's very important we do whatever we can to keep those sectors going, because they are important to health and well-being. Do we have any thoughts or comments, questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Harvey.
Oh, thank you, Leader. And I'd like to start off by saying that just for clarity, there were savings that were scheduled to be made in the cultural services area of the council when we came into office, but we found the savings somewhere else. So we didn't take that £250,000 out of cultural services, and I'm very pleased to see this cultural strategy here, and we'll be very pleased to support its endorsement. Herefordshire has a fantastic cultural sector. We have festivals and events all year round. We have seasonal celebrations. We have arts activities that contribute to lifelong learning. To our tourism sector, it provides a really strong economic boost. And in terms of the lives of people who live here, their well-being, their mental health, their creativity are all enhanced immeasurably by the wonderful cultural landscape that we have in the county. And money continues to be tight, but I'm sure every member of the Cabinet will work together to try and find innovative and inventive ways of bringing culture into as many of the aspects of this council's operation as we can achieve, and through our support do what we can to help cultural organisations to maximise the funding that they can gain from other sources. I know that the endorsement and support of the public sector is really important in helping cultural organisations to access funds from other grant givers, and we must really bear that in mind. So I'm really, really pleased that this is before us today, and super happy to support it.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, me too. Very, very keen to support this. As we've heard, it offers huge benefits to the local economy, to tourism, to our own residents, huge possibilities. I'd like to particularly focus on what it offers our children and young people, absolutely in line with our own expectations and aspirations. They commit to supporting our young people and enriching their lives, our children and young people. And I think there are a huge range of opportunities and experiences in creativity that are particularly valuable to young people in many, many ways. We know that in schools, opportunities have been reduced, not in all schools, but in many due to the pressures of curriculum. And so it's particularly welcome to have this commitment to working with schools and colleges, but also outside in offering these opportunities and support for our young people. I think for me, in a way, most of all, what children can gain and young people is confidence in opportunities to perform, in opportunities to experience a range of creative possibilities. It can help in building and developing their confidence for the future. So I very much welcome this. It's great to see that it's a whole range of partners who've come together on this. So yes, very much behind it. Thank you.
Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Leader. This strategy also reflects our approach and commitment to the arts and cultural services in our county plan. So it's a really good golden thread that we're weaving here. I love the vibrancy and energy you get from the strategy. You can tell it's something that's really passionate. The strategy highlights the importance of social value and social interaction, which in turn can improve physical and mental well-being. So I fully support this strategy, and long may it last. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tyler.
Yes, Leader, I too am very excited about this cultural strategy. It just encompasses everybody's needs in the county to embrace culture, and it's for everybody's ability to come and enjoy it, see the fruits of what we do, all our festivals, and it's just wonderful. And to read it, it just empowers you to really embrace culture, and I really look forward to seeing it all evolve over the next 10 years, and well done, and it's a great strategy, so I fully support it. Thank you.
Councillor Jinman.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to emphasise the fact that this is Herefordshire. It's not Hereford. I think it's really important to understand that the intention of this is that it does reach every part of the county and engages with every part of the county. And Councillor Norman's made the point, particularly with regard to children, but I want to add to that the really important part it plays in older people's lives and the mental well-being that helps and promotes. And here down in Lewis Harold, we are in the process of putting our Arts and Crafts Centre together down here, which will be part of that recipe for improving and maintaining mental health, and social prescribing will be part of that. So I think it's important to realise that sometimes the word culture tends to get overtones that perhaps sometimes lose people and feel it's not them. All I can say is it's everybody and it's everywhere, and it's important to embrace it and understand it on that basis.
Thank you, Councillor Jinman. So Councillor Chowns.
I love what you said just there, Peter, and completely agree. And also just want to echo the point that Liz and Gemma and various other people have made about the value of investing in culture. Actually, it pays back in terms of people's quality of life, but also in terms of our economy. It's a really important part of our local economy. The thing that made me decide to move to Herefordshire 17 years ago was reading Broadsheep. Genuinely, I was at a friend's house and I read Broadsheep and I thought, yeah, this is a place I want to live. So I think we need to kind of really see it as an investment in making Herefordshire the sort of place that people do really want to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, well, we'll go to group leaders now. So first of all, Councillor Lester.
Thank you for that, Chair. Yes, the Conservative group fully support the vision and the objectives in the strategy. It's absolutely essential to have a cultural strategy for art's sake, but also for the sake that's already been mentioned, which is to help with bids and to generally promote Herefordshire. So, absolutely, we think the document is well done and it says what it needs to say. And I think that it should be one of those go-to documents when we wish to promote Herefordshire and all that it does culturally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marsh. You're on mute, Trish. You're still on mute.
Right, how about that?
You're good now.
Great. For the third time, I want to say how much we welcome this. How delighted that the Cultural Compact is already netted some money, and following Councillor Jinman's point, to be especially glad that the Heritage Action Zone in Leinster is mentioned as one of the things that will be assisted, because it is really important. It's right across the council, the county. We're perhaps all aware of the very difficult time that freelancers in the arts are having, and so this is also an expression of support from them. And I was also delighted to see this week in the Hereford Times that, perhaps partly because of the strength of the cultural consortium, that the Courtyard have got 535,000, and another 5 organisations that bring up to over £1 million coming in from the Cultural Recovery Fund. So I think that's really Herefordshire punching, well above what you might think for its weight. And that has been repaid already, and in what is a very difficult time, but will be a lifeline for those organisations. And I hope very much it will lead to further successful bids and yes, trickle down and round the whole county and keep freelancers going as well. Thank you.
Councillor Selden.
Thank you, Leader. Just to say that we thoroughly welcome this report. It's well been known that every pound spent on cultural activities yields far more, and I can't remember the exact figure, I think it's well over £5 more to the local economy. As a purely parochial comment, I noted in the report that there's a picture of the Bromyard Speed Festival included in it. That festival nearly didn't go ahead because of issues with Balfour Beatty Living Places being able to repair the road to such a standard that those vehicles could drive around Bromyard. And I hope that this report will actually join up the council services so that we don't have that situation again, and that we do have cultural events, given that economic benefit to the local economy, we don't have to go through that fight again. Thank you, Leader. Thank you.
Councillor Davies and John, I just wonder whether what the next steps are with this. So we see the report, and certainly one of my observations when I first saw it was it doesn't refer to Herefordshire Council endorsing it or anything like that, and I really wasn't quite sure where the documents had come from. But what are our next steps now in endorsing this, in embracing the group that's run this, in any ways of getting some extra publicity? John, I don't know whether you've any thoughts on that.
Well, I saw Councillor Davis unmuted first, so if you
I was just going to suggest that we just buy a load of stickers and put them on all of the individual strategies so that we're on there now. That would be a good idea. But no, I think it's about it. What this is about is that John already meets with the Cultural Partnership monthly, so he already does the work with the council. This is absolutely showing our endorsement for it and letting the Cultural Partnership know that we are fully behind them from a political sense as well. So I think that's the main purpose of it. What I will say is that it's happening anyway, so we've got a lot of work happening on the future of libraries, on the future of museums, and it feels really joined up at the moment, and it's just really exciting. But I think John will be able to tell you more about the practical things on it.
Yeah, I think what's happened, or what's evolved over the last year or two, is that as the Cultural Partnership and the strategy has come into being, the role that the council can play as an enabler and supporter has become more and more obvious. And I think to the other members of the partnership as well, who see when they're talking to external funders, external bodies such as the Arts Council, having the council at the table and involved and supporting is a huge benefit to the arts, cultural and heritage sector in the county. So simply by us being there, that's a good thing for the creative industries, but also by us being there, it enables us to look at the opportunities for joint working with other groups, other agencies, whether it be the Cathedral, National Trust, whoever it is, and it opens up all sorts of opportunities for joint working and for showing the council's commitment as well moving forward. So I think being in there, having those regular conversations and having a prominent seat at the table is a huge advantage, and will enable us to be partners. So we won't be expected to take on all these things, but we can really benefit and provide benefit to the cultural creative industries within the county. So it benefits everyone.
John, thank you very much. Just keep flying the flag for encouraging those who are doing all this work. It'd be great if we had a bottomless pit of money to contribute, but I think people appreciate that now that that's not going to happen. But what we can do is support, give moral encouragement. Thank you very much. So I'll put this one to the vote. I think So do we have the polling system, or shall I ask everybody to vote? John?
It looks like we're just getting the polling system launched now, Leader.
We all got booted out.
Just left the leader on his own.
Doesn't matter, we're all back. Are we, or are we all in a separate room?
Or a separate reality.
I quite like that other room.
We are being recorded. No swearing.
I was going
to
Be
say.
careful, I nearly sang a song.
It was a green room experience.
I think, Leader, it might be best to just do the named call on this one.
Jen, you deserve a medal at some point.
Didn't help me being on mute, did it? So the recommendation is that the Cabinet agrees to endorse the Herefordshire Cultural Strategy 2019 to 2029 to inform and support its work in the arts, culture and heritage sectors in the city. So all those in favour, I will run down the list to make sure everybody is there. So first of all, Councillor Chowns.
4.
Councillor Crockett.
4.
Councillor Davis.
Definitely 4.
Councillor Harrington.
4.
Councillor Harvey.
4.
Councillor Norman.
4.
Councillor Tyler.
4.
And I'm in favour as well. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. The next meeting is the 29th of October. I can't really finish this meeting without saying something about COVID and the state of things. I think as a county, we are thankfully doing so much better than other places, but we mustn't be complacent. And if we are to keep people safe and well, we need to carry on doing the things which we've been doing well. So we talk about keeping Hereford open, keeping it open for business, keeping it open for the people. We just need to carry on what we're doing and being cautious and not just being sensible about the way we interact with people. So what is it? It's hands, distance, and just encourage people. Yeah, all sorts of signs, lip reading or something going on, hearing.
Hands, face, space.
Hands, face, thank you.
Space.
Hands, face, space. There we go. So I think if everybody can go out who's listening to this, and everybody who's present, the group leaders, we just go out in the community and just encourage people as much as we possibly can, because it's the community which is holding it all together. And I guess a special wish to Gemma Davis working in the NHS and the hospital. We rely upon them so much. Care workers, council workers, everybody around. Thank you very much for all you're doing for the county, and let's try to keep Hereford open. Thank you very much, and see you all again soon.